YouTube has changed a default. It was a feature that was already there in the past, but it's now made a default for new videos where it will hold comments which it has judged as inappropriate. And I was initially rather upset by this. I'm from a kind of old school, I suppose, where we have concepts of freedom, and the idea that somebody online is nearer to us these days is still kind of alien. Back in the olden days, a person online was so far away that things were kind of blunted, kind of fuzzy. Things didn't mean so much. Things didn't hurt so much, for example. So that if there was something there, text on the screen, and it bothered the reader, they wouldn't care as much as they do now. Now, more of a person as a human seems to be put online. So the culture is different. And I'm trying to understand things from that perspective because a generation gap has formed. So it's hard for me to see these things, hard for me to really empathize with these things. And this relates to YouTube holding things. So first, I've read through enough of the intentionally obtuse terms of service to know to know more than I really wanted to. First, it's a tangled mess. It's not all in one place. It's not all in one document because you might have an entry point to learn, and then there will be terms that are being used. And the problem is that there are special interpretations that YouTube is using for certain concepts, and those are referenced in other documents. And those other documents have to be read in order to understand the full idea behind that original document. But the problem is those terms themselves have additional terms that also link to other FAQs, other help documents, and it just goes on like that for long enough that it's very difficult to pull all that back in and understand the primary document. It then gets really weird because in order to use YouTube, you have to use Google. Now, people misunderstand that Google owns YouTube. This is no longer true. It's one umbrella company called Alphabet Incorporated. But it is still true that you need to have a Google account of some variety in order to access YouTube at all. And so you end up being pulled into a Google terms of service as well, because being let's say just violating the YouTube terms of service means that you can have your Google account shut down, just technically an unrelated service. I mean, having your email shut down because your video channels, let's say, posted content which somebody else claims via copyright to be theirs, whether or not it's true, whether or not you're presently mired in actual reasonable legal discussion, for example, you can have your email shut down, which is really strange when that's how you communicate with other people related to your video channel. So things are tied together in very odd ways. And the reason I wanted to talk about all that with respect to YouTube holding comments. So first off, inappropriate is a meaningless concept. It's inappropriate to whom? Inappropriate to YouTube? Oh, okay, I can accept that, but what are give me the list of words. Give me some examples. Give me something. And these kinds of undefined ideas are found in the terms of service and are found in not just YouTube, but Google as well, for concepts of inappropriate or harassment, and it's not tied to actual case law, actual law. it's an American company. So, I mean, I ought to technically disagree with that idea, seeing as I'm not American, but I can work with being subject to American law, but I can't work with something that isn't defined. Like I just can't know what to say or do, or how to react, or I don't know what the right thing to do is. Not really. And there isn't enough forgiveness so that I can make a mistake. I can be told that, hey, that wasn't okay, and I can go, oh, okay, I didn't know because you didn't tell me anywhere, but now I do know because you just told me, so I won't do that, and maybe I'll shy away from being anywhere near that. So I know there's a boundary over there. I'm not just going to be a little bit on this side. I'm going to be like way over here because like, okay, that's taboo kind of thing. So inappropriate is a really strange idea for them to use. Because it's going to be inappropriate to an algorithm that I don't understand and I don't control. I don't participate in it. And in some sense, it feels like YouTube doesn't really. It sets up a few conditions, maybe a few phrases, few words, and then it just lets it run loose. And it will be tied in with the automatic subtitle generating stuff that listens to voices and transcribes, and it will look for these ideas, and then it will react, and it will understand a video, and it will read the text of comments. And I can make all kinds of commentary on comments, but ultimately speaking, because YouTube has this concept now of the author of a video being liable themselves for the comments on their videos, they need to curate them. That's an absolutely that is a literally impossible task. So it might take, let's say for a high quality video, not this one obviously, but let's say for a high quality video, it takes X amount of effort. It might take more than one person, but it takes a certain number of man hours to actually produce. It might take an afternoon, let's say, a good solid afternoon. And that's not including the amount of effort and time and experience that had to go into making that human capable of doing that. It takes an afternoon. And then the video gets released and it gets 1,000 comments. Now, the amount of time it took to make that video, to film it and edit it and upload it and all this kind of stuff, promote it, that takes a chunk of time. But actually curating all those comments and trying to understand them all in the context of that video, because if you have a 10-minute video, maybe you can fit the entire 10 minutes in your head if you're the author, and you can understand all these scattered comments that don't have references to timestamps. But if you make something that's like an hour and a half documentary, or amateur documentary type of thing, or it's a long commentary, or it's podcast and it's rambling and it's got multiple people, and maybe you're the owner of the channel that it's published on, but you don't fully understand what's in the heads of all the people that are speaking all the different things, and you've got all these comments and there's 1,000 comments. How is it possible for the content creator, for the owner of the channel, to actually curate all those comments? It's obviously impossible. Okay, that's not just obviously impossible to even attempt it. Who knows if the attempt is successful or not, because there are no rules that can be understood, right? YouTube doesn't even know their own rules. They just have this fuzzy stuff, and then things get flagged by automation, and then a single human being has a finger over a button that can nuke a video and potentially a channel based on them having 15 seconds of, hey, this is the thing, this is the report, make a decision, human. They're spending far less time than the content creator in making it, or even the commenter making a random comment that might cascade into a problem for the creator. So there's this idea that the owner, the manager of the video, let's say, is somehow liable for comments, which is preposterous. And so if automation is to be to blame for problems coming to light, then this idea of inappropriate comments being automatically held, that's another automation that's kind of being pitted against the accusing automation. So in a sense, leaving this on by default is a good thing for content creators who can't fully understand the rules because they can't be understood, and who don't have the time to actually curate the comments, because nobody can have the time. That's ridiculous. Or at least at some point it's completely impossible. And so I wonder if a person can be accepted, if it can be made understood that a person is slightly safer from those fuzzy rules if this automated reporting plus this automated kind of suppression of inappropriate comments, if those kind of even out somehow, if there's some balance to be made there. I think there should be an obvious forgiveness that's made there. If if these two systems are in play, they should kind of cancel themselves out so that the manager of the video is no longer held liable for that set of comments. Now this idea is so worrying to me that I fully intend to, as soon as things become unmanageable, lock down all comments on all videos, probably download them and then purge them from YouTube, import them, and I've got the systems in place, import them into a forum, import them into two things, import them into a forum that I control, and import them into a forum that I host but don't control, where I point it towards an unhosted by me resource. So a person is redirected to my official forum where I can actually moderate it. I can have rules that I understand. I can be subject to the laws of my country and my host and my ISP or whatever, and so can everybody else. We can actually know. So they watch my video, which has unknowable rules for comments, but comments are locked down. They visit a forum link, they go there, we have adult discussions. And there's this other version where people don't even have to have an account. They can just anonymously vent, and that gets put into a little it gets put into a little space where people can be as unruly or as brutally honest or as inappropriately extreme as they want to be, so they've got an outlet. And then more or less civil discussion that can be actually moderated would be on a forum that I control, so that I don't have to be subject to rules from YouTube which I don't understand. So I like the idea that YouTube has this attempt at holding inappropriate comments. I don't know what they are, and I've already heard from content creators who have talked about this feature, because this feature, before it became default and before it became loudly default for everyone, it was pushed onto other authors already. It was pushed onto their old videos, and they said that they don't want this concept. They want their comments to be a free-for-all, which again is incredibly stupid of them. It means that they don't understand or haven't read any of the things they are subject to. They don't want to have to deal with that, and rightly so. They shouldn't. But they want to go and they look at them and they see some perfectly valid, simple comments. There's nothing contentious. It's like, hey, I like your video. That's great. I like this about this, or something. And they'd go through their list, and there would be however many hundred in the queue. And there would be no next page. There would be a number, but they could look at it all, and they could like say, okay, this one's good, this one's good, this one's good, or they could take a page full and they could say, this is all good. And then what? Then they'd have to refresh the page, get another set of things to review, but the number wouldn't change. The total number wouldn't change. They'd have to say, okay, all of these, refresh the page, and it's empty, but that number didn't change. They'd have to come back later and refresh the page, and it would be full of other stuff, and they'd say, okay, this is okay. And it's the system doesn't, like, they report that the system doesn't work. So even the concept of having comments be be not held. It's as though YouTube has forced this feature on some people, whether or not they have that feature turned on or not. Maybe that's changed. Maybe they fixed it. Maybe there was a grand experiment for some popular YouTubers, and that's why they were talking about it. But yeah, I don't know why anybody would be stupid enough to have the comment feature on YouTube actually be on and without any kind of gatekeeping whatsoever, without any kind of moderation, because YouTube is serious about moderating when it does moderate, and because the volume of things to be moderated is literally impossible for any sensible action. So even an AI is not going to be smart enough to deal with all this stuff. Humans can't deal with it. It's going to be selectively enforced, and it's going to be selectively enforced based on what? Activity, popularity, past history of reports, keywords, right? Political topics, social topics of the day, of past days, a trail of associations, a what. And nobody knows any of that either. So I think those content creators that have comments turned on at all are vulnerable. I think they're foolish, or they're ignorant, or whatever, and you wonder why channels get nuked. And because of this kind of feature, they will be in the future. They will be, and it's going to seem far too selective. And the problem is, we might hear of it for big channels, but we're not going to hear about it for little channels. They won't have anybody else to speak for them. They won't have backups. They'll just get frustrated and leave. So you'll get little people with 10 videos that maybe have a little bit to say, and they speak up a little bit. The automation comes, finds them, eats them alive. They just get demoralized and they leave, and that's that. So yeah, the comment holding is good, but even then, I don't think that's going to balance out from the automation that kills videos and channels. I don't like the idea of comments. They're risky. I kind of like the idea of pushing comments offline. However, and I'll end on this note, YouTube judges a content creator based also on their profile elsewhere, off platform. So a person is subject to the terms of their YouTube fuzziness with the things that they do offsite, which means the forum that, for example, that I would link to for each video, the new forum thread, that thread would still be subject to what? Something. So that if a video of mine got flagged too many times by people who don't like the content and have no argument, they would flag it. YouTube would go look at the forum, or they would cherry pick from a forum thread, or the forum in general, or me, or my Twitter, or something totally unrelated, and YouTube would judge it, and the video or the channel would be threatened. So there's no real concept of being safe other than just making a video and having it be like watching television again. That's not what YouTube was even founded for. It's not what it's supposed to be.